But this time, I think the previous administration left us with easily around 80 ready to implement projects. Tapos na mga feasibility study, mga bridges here, tapos airports there. But so if the private sector is willing to invest in these projects, that will be on top of the 5 to 6%. So, and I think we need to build. Siguro we'll need to build for the next 2 more decades to keep up with our ASEAN neighbors. Now let me start. So maraming salamat for this kapihan again. Now our recovery is gaining strong traction. Kahapon headlines sa Manila Bullet, sa Business World, slow down. They're talking of 2023. Let's talk of 2022 muna, bago mag 2023. We are expecting a growth rate of at least 7% this year. Okay, it might slow down maybe to 6.5, but that's still one of the strongest growth rates in the world. So let's not despair na mag-slow down tayo from 7 to 6.5. Okay? So our recovery is gaining strong traction. Our economic indicators suggest that despite the gloomy outlook on the global economy, this is global, at least the outlook here domestically is very bright. Okay? In fact, mahirap magpa-reserve ngayon sa mga hotels for booking. Diba? Sa mga restaurants, waiting list ka, gano'n. Talagang our outlook is much different from global outlook. So the better than expected third quarter performance of our economy, which brought out a growth rate of 7.6, brought the average growth for the first 3 quarters rather, of the year at 7.7%. So hindi nyo nakita na talagang steady lang despite the change in administration, steady lang. Walang slowdown. Our revenues are on the rise. For the first 10 months of the year, total revenue collections reached 2.9 trillion pesos. That is 18.3% higher than last year's level. And we are now at 89% of our goal for 2022. 89 as of last October, so we're very optimistic that we will exceed our target. With this trend, we expect revenue collections to surpass the pre-pandemic levels this year. Now, let me talk about the gross international reserves. Our gross international reserves as of end October are at $94 billion, 94 billion. This is more than adequate liquidity buffer, equivalent to 7.5 months worth of imports. The receipt doctrine is if you have 3 months worth of imports, you're okay. Okay, ours is 7.5, and will continue to be to receive OFW remittances, BPO receipts, and of course FDIs. If you notice, the peso is gaining back its strength amid global monetary tightening. Now, on the jobs market, again, this is another bright side. The unemployment rate dropped to 5% last September. This is the lowest since the last quarter of 2019. As you know, 2019 was before the pandemic. So 5%. These numbers tell us one thing: our economy is continuously recovering. But still, we remain vigilant against ongoing risk, such as, of course, the monetary tightening in the US, in other developed economies, the high inflation, which is not our fault, because this is due to the war in Russia, Ukraine, which resulted in soaring world oil prices, and of course the supply chain issues. So this administration has crafted an 8-point socio-economic agenda containing strategic interventions to be implemented in the near term and medium term. Our immediate priorities remain the same, addressing the most pressing issues facing the public, which is the rising prices. And of course, still the lingering effects of the pandemic. The 2-year pandemic has some lingering scarring effect. Over the medium term, we will focus on generating quality and green jobs as a recovery strategy. This requires massive investments. So as a result, we have also prepared what is called the medium-term fiscal framework. This is the first ever in the country. Okay, this is a 6-year plan. This is like our North Star. Okay, this is our long-term guide for fiscal sustainability and for long-term growth. So we also, as a result, we all have a series of economic briefings, not only here but also abroad, in Singapore, in New York, in Washington DC, and we will continue to have these economic briefings. We'll probably go to London, we'll go to Frankfurt, we'll go to we'll go to Milan, because we will float our first ever retail dollar denominated bonds. Okay, so again, this is to make sure that our Filipino overseas workers save part of their income. No? We're lucky that we inherited a much stronger institutions and systems, such as the more efficient tax system and a more open and investor-friendly regulatory environment. And I refer here to that series of laws that we passed, including the Public Service Act, amendments to the investment and the retail investors. So all this have changed actually the investment environment of the Philippines. Even then, we recognize that much work has to be done, and I hope to discuss in more detail the reforms we want to pursue in this kapihan to give you a much better picture of the economic transformation that we envision for the Philippines. The challenges are difficult and the stakes are high, but we come fully prepared. We have a well-calibrated plan designed for short-term stability and long-term development. What do I mean by this? If you notice, despite the sea of downgrades during the pandemic, downgrades of many countries globally, the rating agencies have continued to affirm our credit standing. Okay, so that is a plus for us, which means we can raise funds at a lower cost than usual. It will take a lot of work, but we're on it, and this is a government that does what it says and does it swiftly. So thank you very much. I'm ready to answer your questions.
Okay. Let's start off with your statements, sir, because as you have mentioned a lot of good things and a lot of good news, but let me ask you about your very bright, your optimistic outlook about your collections, revenue collections. Na for this year, 89% above the target. And I was just wondering, let's bring it down to the gut issue. A major revenue collector of the government is the customs. Yeah. And because of customs, they collect from imports and exports. But apparently, our economy is a consumption-led economy, and most of these imports are food products, rice, sugar, etc., and even fish. And soon we might also, we are also importing salt. So, do we take it as a positive outlook that the customs collect more? Because there have been more imported goods, and yet there's rising prices, and we are supporting the markets abroad instead of us, of our own markets.
The reason why we're importing lots of, not lots naman, but rice, for example, pork, we continue to import pork, not chicken. I think I think we have a surplus in chicken, and it's the fish. No? It is because we want to control inflation. Okay? That's the objective, control inflation, because there is a shortage of these products right now. Now, the increased collection of customs is not because of this. It's because of the increased price of oil and the depreciation of the currency. Okay, so the peso value of imports has actually increased, and it's also because we have been because of the build program, and because of the economy is growing. Okay, that's why there are a lot of imports. Okay, it's not because of this. So the contribution of the importation of food products is not that big with respect to the increase in the collection. Now let me repeat, our collection as of 1 month ago is 2.9 trillion pesos, 18% higher than last year, and about 90% of our goal for the year. So I'm very sure that we will exceed our revenue target.
So, sir, from as the head of the economic team of President Marcos, you are saying that these are just temporary things that the government will have to do so that, to stem the inflation rate. And yet, the BSP has predicted that it will go, malapit na naman, the first week of December, lalabas na yung mga inflation figures, and the BSP has tentatively come out with a higher inflation rate. And so much so that even the fish are imported. And now this Congress is even looking into this fish price rise and importation.
Nawawala yun, mahina yung battery. No? On the fish, it's basically because of the meron silang tinatawag na fishing season eh. Ngayon, close ngayon eh. May close ngayon yung fishing season, so bagsak yung output, no. But that's really precisely our responsibility on the executive side. We are ramping up production. Okay? Kasi hindi mo naman pwedeng gusto ko ng more fish tomorrow, nariyan na yung fish, di ba? It takes a while. So yun nga, tapos yung shortage minsan sa vegetables is because of the typhoons, no? So but yung naman sa pork, it's still the ASF, no? So we are ramping up agriculture production, and we will continue to import. In fact, we will extend the importation of these products until the end of next year. Sugar, wala pang decision on sugar until the end of next year. But if you notice in the third quarter growth, agriculture grew by 2.2%, precisely because we want to ramp up agricultural production para hindi na tayo masyado mag-import if we're successful. In fact, that's why the President visited ERI, no?
Yes.
To make sure that we'll have better output in agriculture.
And still, what the other...
Isa pang nag-i-import tayo na nag-i-import, minsan hindi nakakarating sa probinsya. No? Not dito lang sa NCR. Kaya minsan, I think more often than not, inflation rate in the NCR is much lower than inflation rate outside. Kasi so yung distribution, that has to be fixed also. Tapos yung we are also trying to reduce minimize na yung mga checkpoints, no? Hindi naman pwede na even at the barangay level may checkpoint. Kasi that increases the cost of production. So we're doing all this, no? And hopefully we'll succeed. In fact, yung sa BSP naman, the forecast is that inflation will average maybe around 5.6% for the entire 2022, but it will go back to 3% by 2024. That is the target.
Okay. Maganda sir yung kanina sinabi mo na medyo the other side of the problem, rising prices, is the lingering effects of pandemic. what are these lingering effects of the pandemic that is affecting our economy, sir?
Well, yung sinabi ko na lingering, it's more on the education side. Kasi we closed our education system for 2 years. So, merong may impact yun sa future income ng mga bata. So, we have to make up for that, no? So, may mga cuts up plan, ganun. So, that is the focus now of DepEd and TESDA. No?
And I just have to go back yung sinasabi mo kasi naalala ko sinasabi ni President Marcos, value chain. Have you already in the ramping up of production, ano particular point of the value chain are you more focused on?
Ang value chain more like yung breakdown sa US and sa Europe yung mga, for example, yung mga truckers, mga gano'n. Tsaka yung yun, of course, yung fertilizer hindi nakakarating sa US o sa globally kasi may restriction do sa Ukraine war. No? So yung mga ganun. On our part, to me, ang value chain problem natin is more like yun na nga, yung sinasabi ko ng mga checkpoints. No? Tsaka yung mga, siguro, mga refrigeration facility. Kasi kaya hindi naman ma-download sa mga areas, yung mga na-import natin, may mga areas na wala naman silang facility. Ganun. But we are fixing that.
As we are winding down the year, sir, the Department of Finance is supposed to be supporting the 2023 budget. So far, sir, how's your checking with the Congress on the final look of our 2023 budget?
Well, I cannot say yet because it's not done. No?
Yes.
It's within. There's a House version, there's a Senate version,
May BICAM ngayon.
and there's right now they're on in a BICAM. But what I'm optimistic about is that this budget will be approved before the end of the year.
Yes.
And so that means that by January 1, full ano na kami.
Yes. Full speed ahead.
Full speed ahead. Kasi importante yun eh. Kasi yung mga projects, the best time to do the projects is the first quarter of the year, dry season yun.
Yeah.
Kasi pag na-delay yung budget, tatamaan ka na ng rainy season nun. No? So, we're optimistic that the President will sign the budget siguro after Brussels, no? But before Christmas. Okay? And so that means that our budget will be implemented full steam ahead by January 1. But even now, pwede na mangontrata ng mga projects short of awarding kasi wala pang budget. No?
And you can say that partly this 2023 budget has already the Marcos.
Yes. This is already part of that the medium-term fiscal plan. If you notice, we have a 6-year medium-term fiscal plan, which defines where we want to go from 2023 up to 2028. And one thing good again is that this medium-term fiscal plan was adopted by both houses of Congress in a joint resolution. Okay, so they are committed to this what we call North Star, our North Star. Okay, so even the Congress is committed to that. Okay.
There seems to be a buzzword because Speaker Romales spoke about North Star also. So that's the latest buzzword of the Marcos administration, the North Star for the medium-term development plan.
Yes. So that's our North Star, the medium-term fiscal plan. The President talked about this extensively during his SONA, if you notice. Okay, I think about siguro half of the SONA is about this. Okay?
But not mentioning North Star. Kaya pala tsaka si Romales na rin North Star na yan. Kahapon niya tayo sa Economic Forum ng Business World.
Correct.
Anyways, are you also adopting, I think you are adopting the build of the previous administration, but you have named it to build more.
Build better more. Okay, BBM. Okay, build better more. Okay, but that's our commitment. At least 5 to 6% of our GDP will be set aside for public infrastructure. But with a twist, now we are actively promoting public-private partnership. So if the private sector are willing to invest on top of that 5%, mas maganda, di ba? The reason being that when the Duterte administration came in, walang available list of ready-to-implement projects. But this time, I think the previous administration left us with easily around 80 ready-to-implement projects. Tapos na mga feasibility study, mga bridges here, tapos airports there. But so, if the private sector is willing to invest in these projects, that will be on top of the 5 to 6%. So, and I think we need to build. Siguro we'll need to build for the next 2 more decades to keep up with our ASEAN neighbors.
Ang problem ko lang dyan sa PPP na yan kapag bridges, airports, that will mean toll collections.
No, but paano naman? But that's better than not having a bridge. No? For example, yung mga north-south link natin ngayon, medyo mahal, pero nakakasave ka naman sa gasolina at saka yung oras mo, di ba? There's no such thing as free lunch, no. Yung mga toll na walang bayad, binabayaran mo rin yun through taxes, no.
Anyway, you have succeeded in the past, 18 Congress. You have succeeded na, mention mo na yung retail law, yung create. How soon will it create impact? These bills. Important bills.
There's a lot of interest in our economic briefing abroad. There's a lot of interest on this Public Service Act because this means that investment in many areas like telco, investment in toll roads, no, investment in shipping, also renewable energy, 100% ownership na yan. Walang limit. So that's very attractive for foreign investors. And so there's a lot of money floating around kasi some countries hindi naman worth investing in. And maganda nga yung natin, investment grade tayo. Plus with the petrodollars, I think there's a lot of money in the Middle East which are interested to invest. So we're very optimistic na papasok yung FDI sa Pilipinas.
So hindi pa right away ma-feel yung impact nun unless this...
Then they have to come here, do their own due diligence, and then they will come eventually. Hindi naman yan as if tomorrow nariyan na sila.
Oh yes.
But as I said, marami kaming ready to implement projects na. Hindi ka nagagawa ng pre-feasibility study, feasibility study, things like that. In fact, marami tayong ginawa na airport doon sa in the past administration na ngayon pwede nang i-turn over sa private sector yung management, no? For example, yung famous airport ni Joey sa Albay, di ba? Yun, pwede mo i-turn over yun sa private sector for management, yung sa some other airports. Na Bohol is another one. So yun, pwedeng private sector yun.
It's ready for auction or what? International offer?
If there's an offer from the private sector, we'll consider that.
Pero kasi we have naman na yung initiative na sila mag-o-offer o yung ano ba yun without any bidding?
Unsolicited proposal.
Unsolicited proposal.
Anybody can come in and in fact I mentioned in my statement meron kasing IRR na sabi nila hindi siya attractive sa private sector. We changed that within the first 100 days of President Marcos.
Anong IRR? Particular IRR?
On the build, operate, and transfer. Yun. Tinata namin yun.
Under the create na?
Under this administration.
Kailan? When did you amend the IRR?
Under this administration.
So it's implemented na effective
It's
na?
been published and it's been implemented.
So it has produced results?
Hindi pa naman babasahin pa rin ng private sector yun and then they will do their own due diligence. Okay? But it's more attractive now than before.
Di ba meron na ang taker yung sa Bulacan Airport?
That was even before. Kay Ramon yan.
So it's full speed ahead na for the Bulacan Airport?
Full speed na si Ramon.
Except yung dito yung Airport City.
Well,
additional
because there's ang tawag namin maraming burloloy, maraming add-ons na hindi acceptable sa government. Like walang COA, walang tapos there are many deficiencies in the bill. Okay? That's why it's vetoed. But in principle, hindi dapat na dito yun. Except for those ornaments. Let's put it that way.
But they can refile it.
They can refile it anytime.
Without those ornaments.
They can refile it, yes.
Kasi it envisions to be an eco zone, di ba?
But even then, kahit naman wala pa yung bill, full blast yung development sa Bulacan.
Okay.